Venezuela's neighbor to the west, Colombia, was shaken by its own earthquake yesterday, but nothing near the scale of the Venezuelan tremors. Special correspondent Monica Villamizar is in the Colombian capital of Bogota. She has long experience reporting in Venezuela, and she joins us now. Monica, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, Amna.
So this was an absolutely devastating earthquake in Venezuela. Just tell us what you're learning about the scale of the damage and what you're hearing from people inside Venezuela right now.
I have a whole documentary crew on the ground, and thankfully they're safe. But I can tell you, Abna, that what we are hearing is that the devastation is likely to be way more severe than the official reports we're seeing. Communications are disrupted, to say the least, and that means that the statistics regarding the injured casualties are not reliable at this point in the capital, Caracas, a capital of 3 million people. And a lot of the buildings there, Amna, are very old. I can tell you that by experience. They do not follow the code or seismic regulations. So the ones that are still standing are very frail, some of those, and they can also collapse if there are aftershocks. And as we know, there have been aftershocks.
As you well know from covering these kinds of disasters in the past, these first 24, 48 hours are absolutely critical when it comes to search and rescue. What else are you hearing in terms of the challenges for the first responders, and where's the greatest need right now?
Well, that's a great question. And we are hearing reports that the early emergency warning system did not work. So people did not know what to do. And then there was the aftershock, very strong aftershock indeed. So that could have saved lives. Maybe, as you know, covering so many earthquakes, these early warning systems do make a difference. And sadly, this did not work, apparently. We understand, and there are reports that people in neighborhoods have not seen a single ambulance or emergency rescue worker. So that, again, is very worrying. The critical challenges that you ask, well, Venezuela is a very polarized society right now. However, we're hearing that there's a lot of solidarity, people helping neighbors, digging themselves, helping dig through the rubble to find their loved ones. One thing to bear in mind, Abna, is that about 8 million people have left Venezuela, so the diaspora now too. A lot of anxiety because families have been separated and they do not know what happened to their loved ones. The internet is down, communications are down, and in the other hand, they're seeing some of the social media videos that are, really quite frightening and that we saw in your reporting.
And as we've been covering, there was so much economic and political instability before this tragedy. This is, of course, where the U.S. had gone in and arrested the former president, Nicolas Maduro, earlier this year. What did all that mean for how this country can now respond to the emergency?
Absolutely. As you say, and what people are telling me is, look, we've been hit by a political crisis, economic crisis. Let's remind our viewers that only yesterday there was news that Venezuela has one of perhaps the largest sovereign debts in the world. So a very dire situation. And now this natural disaster on top of it all. We know Delcy Rodriguez has said and asked for help from other countries, and the U.S. and the State Department has pledged that some people are already on their way. This help is much needed because it's a very challenging situation on the ground. There's a security situation. There's a lot of crime in Venezuela, and the gangs and colectivos, which are like armed civil militias loyal to the regime, control entire neighborhoods. So that's going to maybe hamper efforts. And we're already hearing reports from La Guaira that there is some looting.
Special correspondent Monica Villamizar joining us from Bogota, Colombia tonight. Monica, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We don't need no water. We don't need no water. We don't need no water. We don't need no water.
I just want to go for a swim, that's all.
We don't need no water.
I ain't went for a swim since I was a little kid.
We don't need no water.
You probably just be throwing it all willy-nilly, just pouring it on your shoes for no reason. I need water, man.
Temperature records are continuing to break across Europe. France has just sweated through its hottest night in more than 80 years. It's expected to peak on Wednesday afternoon at more than 41 degrees. It's a similar story across Spain, Italy, Germany, and even up as far north as the UK. A funnel of air has been drawn in from the Sahara because of a persistent area of high pressure that's loitering stubbornly over Western Europe. More on the human impact of that in a moment, but first here's the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, on the link between what's happening and climate change.
Climate chaos is accelerating before our eyes. We have just lived through the 11 hottest years ever recorded. And today, this city and far beyond are experiencing the hottest day of the year with higher temperatures to come. London isn't just going, it's cooking. We must act with far greater urgency to strictly limit the magnitude and duration of any overshoot beyond 1.5 degrees.
Italy has declared a heat red alert in 15 cities, while rising temperatures are increasing the risk of forest fires in Germany. Half of France's regions are currently under the harshest weather warning. Hundreds of schools have been closed and drinking alcohol has been restricted outdoors. Just a couple of the measures officials are introducing to deal with what is already a record-breaking heatwave. Anastasia spoke to us from southern France.
Nîmes is one of the hottest cities in France. We just go outside at night because during the afternoon it's really hot and very hard to be outside. I think we have to adapt now. We have to use the AC or to change because I think it's going to be harder and harder. Now we know now because it's the second heat wave we have, like we had one in May, now we have one in June, and I don't know what it's going to be in July and August.
Spain has already been dealing with the heat for weeks. Now it's getting even more intense. Large parts of the country are under weather warnings. This woman describes the conditions in the south.
It's horrible. It feels catastrophic. I don't know what temperature we're at, but it feels horrendous. It feels awful. The heat right now is really, really, really bad.
Our correspondent in Paris, Hugh Schofield, told us more about the impact the heat's having.
Gradually, over the last few years, we have been becoming accustomed to periods like this, and the forecasters have been telling us, everyone believes it now, that they are going to become more regular and therefore part of our lives. We were reporting in very similar circumstances about a month ago with a very similar period of unprecedented heat, and back then all the people we were speaking to were saying what they're saying now, which is this is something we're just going to have to learn to cope with. It's not pleasant. It's a kind of Middle Eastern style of heat which the country is not really, certainly the northern part of the country is not equipped for. Here in Paris, private home schools don't tend to have air conditioning, and that's something which people are beginning to think more and more of. I know that there's been a rush on buying air conditioning units from suppliers. So, yeah, I mean, look, more and more, every time this happens, people realise that it's for real. It isn't a one-off. It's going to be part of our lives, and they're having to adapt.
Now to Spain. Our correspondent in Madrid is Guy Hedgeko.
We heard there from someone down the south of the country, and it's normally the south which sees the worst of the heat. Today, for example, we're expecting temperatures up to 44 Celsius down in the Guadalquivir Valley. I think, as Hugh mentioned there, I think that the big shock for people is seeing these kinds of temperatures earlier in the year or before the end of June. That comes as quite a shock because many people, you know, they're trying to work as normal, or, you know, children are at school. And when you have a heat wave in the middle of July or August, it's slightly different because much of the country tends to shut down. Even many businesses shut down. Certainly there's no school or no university classes in the middle of summer. But this is not the middle of summer, so that presents a series of challenges. Now, the government a few years ago did introduce some legislation aimed at this. For example, making sure that manual workers are not allowed to work during the hottest time of day during a heat wave. We've seen a number of measures like that being gradually introduced, and we've seen a spike in the sale of air conditioning this year, the same as France as well. But I think the fact that it comes so early in the year, this kind of heat, is presenting a lot of challenges for businesses and for ordinary people here in Spain.
Guy Hedgeko. Well, across much of Western Europe, forecasters have warned that the heat wave will be widespread, long-lasting and intense, with temperatures not expected to drop until the end of the week. Something called a heat dome is being blamed for the scorching temperatures. For more details on that weather phenomenon, here's Simon King from BBC Weather.
A heat dome is essentially a large area of high pressure. So in meteorology, when you've got a high pressure, that essentially means that air is descending down the atmosphere. So when you've got the air coming down through the atmosphere, it's drying out as it does so, and it's heating up as it does so as well. So that's drying out, that heating up means that you've got more sunshine, and therefore more sunshine is reaching the ground, heating the ground and heating it up from below. But it's also, as the air is descending, it's compressing. So think of a bicycle pump. As you pump up a bicycle tyre and you put in the pump, you feel your hand getting warm, and that's the air compressing and heating up. So this heat dome is essentially this process of a large area of high pressure which becomes static, it doesn't move, and all that heat builds and it just doesn't get released anywhere. It's trapped underneath it, and that's why we see those temperatures rise sometimes really quite rapidly.
Now, this is clearly a weather event. To what extent is it made more likely by climate change?
Well, climate change is making it worse. Climate scientists have been very clear over the last few decades that heat waves in the future will become more intense, more frequent, more prolonged. They'll get hotter, and this is exactly what we're seeing. So the temperatures in Europe have been rising gradually over the last decade or so. In fact, Europe is warming at twice the rate as the rest of the world. So when you think about the baseline temperature just increasing by just a few degrees, it means that when you get these heat dome scenarios, or this weather pattern we've got, the temperature then is allowed to go higher than it would have done in the past climate. So the new climate that we're facing ourselves in at the moment is just essentially adding on to the weather patterns and making those hotter.
And I suppose we should mention at this stage we're talking about temperatures in the low 40s. In other parts of the world, we're increasingly seeing temperatures into the low 50s, aren't we, in areas that are even less able to cope with those kind of increases?
Yeah, of course, in India, as just one example, it has been extremely hot there. And of course, India does get extremely hot ahead of the monsoon. You see that heat really building up. But again, in other parts of the world, like India, heat waves, again, are going to get more intense and prolonged. So we're going to see those temperatures, again, approaching the 50s in degrees Celsius. The Middle East also, of course, sees those sort of temperatures. But you're really stretching the limit at where the body can cope with that sort of heat. And in places like India, when people have to be working outside, they have to be exposed to that heat, they can't cool themselves down. These sort of heat waves, are deadly, unfortunately, and we're going to see more excess deaths in the future because of these higher temperatures.
Simon King.
Medical apartheid. The dark history of medical experimentation on black Americans from colonial times to the present.
Now, you may have heard the term biological age. That's how quickly our cells are aging and the overall state of our health, quite independent of the number of years that you've been alive for. Well, a new study just published in the journal Nature suggests that we are biologically aging faster than our parents. Researchers at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis are now questioning whether this could explain a rise in early onset cancers. Dr. Anisha Patel was diagnosed with bowel cancer at a young age and was involved in the study.
This is a big study that's done in the UK and the US, 160,000 people, and what they did was they analysed blood samples and looked for various markers in the body to do with the immune system, to do with chronic inflammation, to look at wear and tear of the cells. And they have got a calculator called PhenoAge, which sort of works out the individual's biological age. And then they associated this with those of us that are born in more recent generations. We are biologically aging faster, and this may be causing cancers in the young, particularly lung, bowel and womb cancer. But it doesn't show a definite cause. I think what's really important here is that it's a clue.
Certainly some cancers are increasing at an earlier age than they were in the past, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And the work that we're doing with Team Prospect, which is funded by the Cancer Grand Challenges, is to try and establish what is the global rise and what is the cause of this global rise of early onset. And we're specifically looking at bowel cancer, but we know there are several cancers, 11 in fact, that are rising in the under 50s. And a study in the Lancet in 2024 showed that 27 out of 50 countries showed a global rise in bowel cancer, for example, which is huge. And England is the fourth fastest rising. So we need to do something. This is a major public health issue.
And that may or may not have anything to do with this speeding up of biological aging. What is the reason for biological aging speeding up?
Yeah, so we think it's going to be multifactorial, as is the cause of why young people are getting cancer. And so it is the interplay of sort of chronic inflammation, our lifestyle, environmental factors that weren't such a factor many years ago. And these are called epigenetic factors, diet, exercise, smoking, sleep, stress, being overweight, chronic inflammation. And these can then affect the way our genes express themselves later on in life, potentially causing early cancers and causing biological aging, this cell wear and tear.
There's no doubt that some countries are doing better than others in terms of this, aren't they?
Yeah, I think, we are seeing it in developing and developed countries, which is really interesting. And, developing countries are not only competing with their health inequalities and the disease that they have to deal with, they're now taking on the Western lifestyle as well, which is further adding to that. So I think it's something that we really need to have further studies on to get the answers that we need to try and prevent this rise, to intervene earlier and to stop this global epidemic.
Dr. Anisha Patel.
A terrible thing to waste. Environmental racism and its assault on the American mind. Written by Harriet A. Washington.
It is hard to escape the smoke and the haze that's plagued the east side of L.A., and thanks to the winds, other places now across greater L.A., a huge and stubborn fire at the Lineage Logistics Cold Storage Facility in Boyle Heights still burns to this day, 5 days after it ignited last Wednesday. Crews say the fire's hard to put out because of steel walls and burning solar panels, and yes, even ammonia inside that helps the refrigeration process. That fire is expected to keep burning for the next several days. And in the meantime, L.A., the city, and the state of California both declared states of emergency to free up resources. Air quality advisories are also still in effect. Pollution is not a new subject, though, for lower-income areas of Los Angeles or for the United States, for that matter. And Gustavo Arellano, our L.A. Times columnist, is here to talk about it right now. Hey, Gustavo.
Hola, Steve.
So air quality officials quickly rescinded their shelter-in-place orders, yet you saw that thick smoke. I mean, we saw those orders at first on Wednesday and then again on Thursday and Friday as well. Is there a disconnect between what officials say and what the physical reality is on the ground?
I mean, look, I passed through the 5 freeway on Saturday going to downtown, around where the 5 and the 105 splits. It was like a fog day. The visibility was down. I could smell the smoke in my car, even though I had my windows up and the circulation was for the interior part. The traffic had slowed down, and we could all see what was to the west of us, this big, huge plume of smoke that was not stopping. The air quality folks that manage what's going on in Southern California, they're going to have their metrics, but on the ground, people are like, no, we need support, and we need it now.
Well, what kind of support? The state has already declared a state of emergency. Governor Newsom did. Karen Bass, the mayor of L.A., same for the Boyle Heights region in that area. What else can be done?
You're actually seeing it happen. Assemblymember Mark Gonzalez and Council Member Isabel Jurado, they've been out on the ground passing out N95 masks, those are heavy-duty ones that we remember from the pandemic. Air purifiers. The city of Vernon gave out free air purifiers to all of its residents. But I think what most people are questioning is, why is it taking so long for the fire department? This is not a wildfire where it spreads out for thousands and thousands of acres. This is a contained facility. It has not spread outside of the facility. And so people are asking, why is it taking so long? But as you noted earlier, it's kind of a complex fire because of the warehouse itself. This is 10 football fields. It can store up to 85 million pounds of frozen product. So you're dealing with a place that's not just any structure, it's a cold storage facility. So it's going to, this is coming from the LA Fire Department when they're saying, if everything goes according to plan, we'll put out the fire in a couple of days, which that's no solace to the residents in Boyle Heights.
So in the meantime, Gustavo, again, more questions about why it just seems to happen over and over again in areas with lower income people, with black and brown people. Why does this keep happening? And is there any change afoot that can happen to where this doesn't keep happening to these folks, especially on the east side of LA?
Yes, these pollution incidents, to put it nicely, they have been afflicting Boyle Heights, especially now, going back to the 1950s, when the neighborhood got carved up with all the freeways that got put in there, with continued efforts to put everything from incinerators to battery recycling plants in the area. Like, this is a legacy of the growth of Southern California. And so a lot of people are asking, why was it that city fathers of the past allowed this to happen? In other words, to allow industrial warehouses, to allow just commerce for that matter to be around working class neighborhoods. And that is a legacy of how Southern California got developed in the past. How do you rectify that? That's a really hard question, because also these warehouses, they are jobs. They do pay taxes into the city to make things better. But at a certain point, the residents are going to be like, enough's enough. Why should it cost us so much to be able to breathe clean air and enjoy a day out where we're not going to think it's toxic?
And for the record, Lineage Logistics putting out statement after statement today saying that they proactively took steps to pump out the ammonia, that was the dangerous stuff, right, and transport that ammonia off-site, removing the possibility of it's risking the community. They're also saying that they're giving money to the California Community Foundation that'll be distributed to support community members who have been affected by all of this. LA Times columnist Gustavo Arellano. Gustavo, thank you.
Gracias.
And newly released court papers question the safety of Roundup, one of America's most popular weed killers.
As reported earlier, in a 7-2 ruling today, the U.S. Supreme Court sided with the manufacturer of the weed killer Roundup. The decision overturns a jury award to a man who said more than 2 decades of exposure to Roundup caused him to develop a type of blood cancer. The ruling is expected to block thousands of similar lawsuits across the country. Joining us now is Dr. Shadi Nabhan. He's a medical oncologist and the author of Toxic Exposure, the true story behind the Monsanto trials and the search for justice. He also served as a key expert witness in 3 of the first Monsanto trials. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me.
So Roundup is one of the most widely used herbicides in the country, used on more than 300 million acres of U.S. farmland and sold since the 1970s. We can walk into a home improvement store right now and buy a bottle. What does the science tell us about the potential health risks?
We've learned a lot about Roundup and its active ingredient glyphosate over the years. Mainly, it's linked to carcinogenicity and the ability to cause cancer, and specifically non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The IARC, the International Association on Research on Cancer, in 2015 labeled glyphosate, the main ingredient of Roundup, as a probable human carcinogen, based on published data, peer-reviewed literature, based on animal studies, toxicology studies, as well as epidemiological studies. So we know today, in 2026, way more than what we knew back then in the 70s and 80s when Roundup came to market. But the most important part that we know is it's linked to carcinogenicity, and specifically non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which is the blood cancer that you were referring to earlier.
So the EPA, when it says that Roundup does not cause cancer if used properly, and they didn't require Monsanto, which was later acquired by Bayer, to have a warning label, what are they basing that on?
I think it's important to look at the entire picture. The EPA usually looks at the evidence that is available to them at the time, and often that evidence is presented to them and supplied by the manufacturer of the herbicide or the pesticide. And of course, the evidence changes. The evidence evolves. Science changes and science evolves. We know today way more things than what we knew many years back. So the EPA really relies on the evidence that was presented to them. But one of the most important things to know that, just to give you an example, one of the papers that the EPA relied on was retracted just recently. Several months ago, it was a paper that was authored by Williams and colleagues, and that paper was retracted because of ethical concerns and research misconduct. This is the paper that continues to be cited by everyone that says glyphosate is safe and Roundup is safe. So if the paper that everybody says is good paper and this is something that's safe gets retracted because we don't know the integrity of it, and the EPA relied on it at the time, then there is a problem. Why was the paper retracted? Because of the litigation trials, because of what surfaced in courts, because of these lawsuits that actually brought this paper to light.
In a statement to the NewsHour after today's ruling, Bayer said this in part: the U.S. Supreme Court decision is good for science, farmers, and industries that depend on regulatory clarity for innovation. It should help significantly contain the Roundup litigation after nearly a decade of legal battles. So what are the larger implications here?
I think there's a legal aspect of this which I cannot comment on because I don't have the legal expertise. But from a scientific and a medical perspective, as someone who has treated and cared for hundreds and hundreds of patients with lymphoma, it is important for us to identify and know the causes of this disease if we can. Many times we can't. Many times a patient has a disease and they ask, why do I have it? And we don't have an answer. But if we're able to identify a cause, and if there's a possibility that a compound like this is causing cancer and is hurting people, it is our obligation to not have it available to the general public. And look, I mean, again, we all know that 50, 60 years ago, we thought tobacco was safe, didn't we? We actually had doctors advertise for smoking. We had people smoke in the hospitals. There are pictures of this online. Well, we know today that it's not. So it's okay to admit that we know today more than we knew before, but I believe it's a nihilistic approach to ignore the evidence and to say, well, it's very safe, do whatever you want with it, and nothing to worry about. It's just not true.
Dr. Shadi Nabhan, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
What does that mean? They were going to safety. The black people going to the Superdome were going into greater danger. You know, because somebody figured out that most of these people don't have a way to get out of here. Most of them are black. Send them to the Superdome and let the water rise. That's the way you have to think.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, thousands of Louisiana residents lost important documents along with their homes and belongings. The Louisiana Office of Vital Records became a critical resource, helping people replace birth certificates, death certificates, and other essential records. In the years since, the agency has modernized its systems and expanded services to better respond during emergencies. Here's a look at how those changes are helping Louisiana prepare for the next disaster. When Hurricane Katrina struck Louisiana in August 2005, the storm destroyed homes, flooded neighborhoods, and displaced hundreds of thousands of people. But after the floodwaters receded, many survivors faced another problem. How do you rebuild your life if you can't prove who you are? Today, Darlene Smith serves as Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Public Health. But during Hurricane Katrina, she was Louisiana State Registrar for Vital Records.
The night before, I had a dream, just a dream about the records. I stopped and I told the staff, I said, we have to get them out.
Before Katrina, many of Louisiana's vital records were stored in the basement of the state office building in New Orleans. As the storm approached, employees raced to move as many documents as possible to higher floors before the floodwaters arrived. But there wasn't enough time to save everything.
So I decided, let's get the birth records. We can recreate a death certificate, but we cannot recreate a mother's original signature on her birth certificate. By the end of the night, we got 80% of the records to the 5th floor.
Floodwaters washed away birth certificates, marriage licenses, driver's licenses, and other critical documents. For displaced residents trying to find housing, apply for assistance, or return to work, proving their identity suddenly became a major challenge. The agency responsible for those records found itself at the center of the recovery effort.
After Katrina, we moved into a building. All we had was a table, no phone, one table, no phone. People needed their records.
In the aftermath of Katrina, many employees were dealing with storm damage and displacements themselves while trying to help thousands of residents recover lost records. At one point, the office was operating with only a small fraction of its normal staff.
Most of our records at that time were not in a computer. We were DOS-based. We contacted every state. We got a pass to get back in the city. We came to the building, we grabbed what microfilm and banknote. Banknote is the paper we use to print the certificates on, what we could. Every state helped us. We ended up issuing 42,000 certificates out of the EOC with 4 people.
For thousands of evacuees, those certificates were the first step toward rebuilding their lives. After the disaster, restoring the records became another challenge.
When we received the records back, we didn't have the proper space. They went right back into disarray. Mold growing on those records, we had to manually wipe. Records that were severely damaged.
Katrina exposed major weaknesses in how Louisiana stored and protected its records, and it pushed the state to modernize. Today, Devin George serves as Louisiana's state registrar, overseeing the records that help verify everything from births to deaths.
The birth certificate is a foundational document, so you have to have it, to get a job, to get Social Security, to retire. We register almost 110,000 records in 1 year, and we issue over 600,000 certified copies every year.
Prior to us becoming digitized, we had to touch the records every day. That's how we issued certified copies.
Today, records are digitally backed up and more accessible than they were in 2005. Residents can request many documents online or through local processing offices across the state.
We register and we issue from this system. They request their birth certificate. This is called banknote. This is what makes it legal. We have archival space that I would say rivals any registry, any vital records registry in the country. I think that we are really at the forefront in what we're doing at this point.
The office is also looking toward the future. This year, Governor Jeff Landry approved a new commemorative certificate that state officials say will celebrate Louisiana's history and culture.
We have a commemorative certificate that just went through the process to become law, and that we should be introducing real soon and making it available to the public. Commemorative certificate will have the governor's, the first lady, the registrar, the secretary's signature on it, and it's going to have a beautiful scene of the state of Louisiana.
The records kept here document some of the most important moments in a person's life. More than 2 decades after Katrina, the system that nearly lost those records has been transformed. But officials say the lesson remains the same. In a disaster, protecting people also means protecting the documents that prove who they are.
I don't want us to lose sight that things are getting better. Each successive generation seems to be making progress in changing attitudes when it comes to race. Doesn't mean we're in a post-racial society. It doesn't mean that racism is eliminated. But when I talk to Malia and Sasha, and I listen to their friends and I see them interact, they're better than we are. They're better than we were on these issues. And that's true in every community that I've visited all across the country.
Tonight, the South Bend City Council discussed the LaSalle Park neighborhood's long history of discrimination. This was only part of a 3-hour-long meeting. Our Serenity Prophet is live in studio with more. Hey there, Serenity.
Hey, so Monday night, South Bend City Council adopted a resolution to officially acknowledge the history of racial discrimination and environmental concerns that impacted the LaSalle Park neighborhood and black residents. This surreal moment comes after several years of fighting. LaSalle is getting the apology and acknowledgement they deserve. And many residents showed up in person or online voicing their support, many expressing their gratitude following the council's decision. Multiple council members were calling a time where they or family members grew up in the LaSalle area. I spoke with council member Dr. Oliver Davis, who says this is long overdue and a step towards healing.
We have to heal in order for us to move forward to the future. Let's look at the ways that we had challenges, and now we can do better as we plan for the future.
Earlier in the meeting, the council discussed to move forward establishing a dedicated neighborhood fund. However, no plans are set yet.
We know this was a long meeting. Serenity, thank you for being there to bring us the latest.
But first, a series of violent attacks in Edinburgh has shocked Scotland and triggered a bigger conversation about hatred, division and the safety of Muslim communities across the UK. 5 people were injured after a man targeted different parts of Edinburgh last week on a Friday night. Police are treating the incidents as terror-related. The 36-year-old man, Lewis Hawkes, has been charged with 5 counts of attempted murder linked to terrorism. He also faces charges of assault and robbery, breach of the peace, and culpable and reckless conduct. Prosecutors say all the charges have a terrorist connection. Well, the assaults began near Broomhouse Mosque in West Edinburgh at around 8:30 p.m. on Friday. 2 22-year-old men had just finished their prayers when they were stabbed multiple times in Sighthill Park. Well, the violence then spread across the city. A taxi was vandalised, a petrol station shop was trashed, and several more people were attacked on Leith Walk. CCTV footage showed a bare-chested man carrying 2 large weapons and chasing people in the street. Police arrived soon after and arrested a man who had left 5 men, aged between 22 and 39, injured. Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney, described the incident as a wake-up call for the country.
This was always a very welcoming, inclusive community, a community that was brought together, so it's heartbreaking to experience what we're experiencing now.
Swinney warned that divisive political language could encourage hatred in communities. He specifically criticised the Reform UK party, saying he feared that normalising intolerance could lead to incidents like these. However, Reform UK rejected the claims.
Conflating the acts of a madman with a genuine debate around mass migration is treating the public in a shocking and contemptuous manner. Iron Reform will not apologise for standing up for working-class communities who feel they've been ignored by the entire political establishment.
But as the country continues to process what happened, a new study has added to the concern. The report found that 1 in 6 Britons believe the growth of the Muslim population poses a threat to British culture. Researchers warn that these attitudes could become normalised if they are left unchallenged. The study also found that 19% of people do not believe Muslims born in Britain are as British as white non-Muslims. At the same time, there were some positive findings as well. Most Muslims, about 73%, said the UK is a good place to be a Muslim. More than half of the public also said Muslims are just as British as anyone else, while support groups point to a lack of communication.
Too many people simply do not know a Muslim. The interpersonal contact and connection that builds trust is missing from their daily lives. Both must be addressed. It is in those local relationships, more than anywhere else, that prejudice is undone.
Police have now spoken to multi-faith organisations across Edinburgh to offer support and reassurance. The message from community leaders is clear. Different communities can live together peacefully, but hatred, misinformation and division must not be allowed to grow. Because everyone deserves to feel safe, respected and welcome in the place they call home.
The gay rights movement is changing everything.
Seattle is hosting its 4th World Cup match today. As part of June's Pride Month celebrations, local organizers have designated the Pride Match to celebrate the LGBTQ community. But the match is between Egypt and Iran, 2 countries where people can face criminal punishment for homosexuality. Casey Martin from K.U.O.W. in Seattle talked to some soccer fans who plan to show up with pride and a bit of protest.
In case you were wondering what it's like to run a sports bar in a city hosting the World Cup, Jen Barnes says,
very, very, very busy.
So packed, in fact, we had to stand on the street outside to talk. Barnes runs Rough and Tumble in Seattle, a bar dedicated to women's sports on all the big screens. And this month, it's all about pride. Rainbow and trans pride flags hang from the ceiling. Though, in a bar like this, in a city like this, Barnes says those flags are up all year round.
It is reflective of not just what we want our city to be, but also who we are.
Seattle is buzzing right now with festivities from Pride Month and the World Cup. Those will combine Friday for what local organizers are calling the Pride Match. There will be commemorative scarves and posters designed by local queer artists, available at the stadium where the game is played and also online. And some pre-existing Pride events have been combined with watch parties around the city. The one hiccup is that the 2 governments of the countries playing on Friday might not love all the rainbow flags in Seattle this month. Both Egypt and Iran have laws that criminally punish homosexuality. Now, queer soccer fans in Seattle say they're ready to show up outside the stadium and be loud and proud about their identity.
We're not going to be in the game. Those tickets are crazy ass expensive. But we will be around the stadium participating.
Nick Nowicki was at the bar with some friends a few days before the Pride match.
Seattle's going to come out surrounding the stadium. It's important for the country to see that and to bring back some of the protest nature behind Pride.
The idea to designate Friday as the Pride match came from the local organizing group in Seattle, not FIFA. That decision was made before Iran and Egypt were chosen to play the game, and FIFA says the countries were chosen at random. When the governments of Iran and Egypt heard about it last year, they both protested. But FIFA says it's a host city decision. Pride flags and signs will be allowed into the stadium as long as they meet the size requirements. Some queer soccer fans say it's tricky to know how to feel about the game. Chris Bacchus says he doesn't blame the soccer team for their government's policies.
I hope we welcome the teams to the field so that we don't do what has been done to us in their countries where we're saying you don't belong here.
He says the point of Pride is inclusion.
You belong here because soccer, it only needs a ball. Everyone is welcome on the field.
When people from all over the world tune in to watch on Friday, they won't just be seeing Seattle's skyline and stadiums, Bacchus says. They'll see what the city really values.
We're not a marginal part of the community. We are the community. We are integrated into the fabric of Seattle.
Bar owner Jen Barnes says she expects Pride to be on full display on Friday. That maybe could send a message to Egypt and Iran.
Rainbow outfits and flags and hats and joy, and every single one of the individuals who's watching feels safe and celebrated.
Friday's match in Seattle kicks off at 8 p.m. local time. For NPR News, I'm Casey Martin in Seattle.
Trump's a wild guy. He's a wild guy. I'll tell you something he did that made me crazy when he was running for president. When he was running for president, he said this at a debate. He said the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, were eating people's dogs and cats. That really upset me because I live in Ohio. In fact, what's up, Ohio? I live one town over from Springfield. Now, those of you who are from Ohio, I hope you know that's not what's happening in Springfield at all. What happened in Springfield is a lot of jobs went away. 20,000 Haitian immigrants were moved there by our government legally, and they pay market value for their rents, and they saved a lot of companies because they did jobs that the whites weren't doing. It's not that the whites couldn't do these jobs, but they were busy, doing other things. Heroin, sleeping on the streets, you know what it is. And those communities are immigrant communities who tend to be very successful. They don't come to America to not be rich. And when he said that community caught hell. There was like a jealousy that ran through the community, and there was nothing I could do about it. But because I was famous, I said, well, let me just be supportive. So every day, for like 10 days, I would drive a few miles over to Springfield and eat lunch at the Haitian restaurant. And let them know, if I'm safe here, you guys are definitely safe here.
We've reported that some 300,000 people originally from Haiti are living in the U.S. with temporary protected status, several thousand of whom have settled in Springfield, Ohio. They were the targets of this false, ugly claim by President Trump in 2024 during a presidential debate airing on ABC.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
As we said, repeatedly proven false, but the impact on the community was profound. There were bomb threats, there were rallies by white supremacists, and so on. That's something the Reverend Carl Ruby knows well. Reverend Ruby is a senior pastor at Central Christian Church in Springfield. His congregation includes many Haitians. He also founded Springfield Neighbors United and G92, dedicated to helping Haitians in Springfield who are facing deportation. So we've called him to ask how his community is reacting to this latest news. Reverend Ruby, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
You've obviously been following this closely. What have you been hearing so far from people in your community who could be affected by yesterday's ruling?
Well, I mean, yesterday was surreal, in just the way that the tension hung over our city, and particularly our Haitian community, and it was a whirlwind, and we're still trying to get a handle on it. But I was getting phone calls from members of the congregation asking if they should go to work. There were Haitians with me when we received the news, and they immediately began crying. So yesterday was a really, really hard day.
I can imagine. So, Haiti has been facing many struggles. I mean, this has gone on for sort of quite some time, but immediately there have been all kinds of pressures, the gang violence, et cetera, which has sort of been reported. How have people in the community been sort of dealing with that, knowing that there was the specter of being sent back?
People who are advocates for Haitians are very, very aware of that. People who have kind of an anti-immigrant bias, I think they totally ignore that information. And just to kind of give you an indication of what it's like pastoring Haitians during this time, I had a 12-year-old child just this last week who was in a children's program, and we were talking about pigs, and he immediately told a story about seeing feral hogs eating bodies back in Haiti. So these are people who have been severely traumatized before they ever arrived here. And, I think your listeners can imagine the fear in a child's mind and heart having fled that. And this child survived a kidnapping attempt. He went on to talk about, hiding in a classroom while there was shooting outside. So they know how awful it is. They know what they're being sent back to, and they're terrified.
Can you just tell us a bit more about the Haitian community in Springfield and its place in Springfield? What do people do there? How have they sort of rooted themselves in the community there?
Yeah, Springfield was a shrinking Rust Belt city before they arrived, and we had gone through 50 years of decline. When Haitians arrived, it was the first time Springfield grew. We went from being one of the fastest shrinking cities to the fastest growing city. They fueled our economy. They started businesses. Businesses that were already here added shifts. New businesses came because of the Haitian workforce. So they've had a huge impact, and they show up everywhere. And most of them are professional people who are doing manual labor jobs because their certifications don't apply here. So they're very popular with employers. I've talked to one factory owner in town. He said they always show up. They work as much as they can, and they never fail drug tests. So they're the ideal employees, and they're exactly what Springfield needs.
We only have about 30 seconds left, but is there any recourse that you're aware of so that people wouldn't have to leave?
There really isn't. We're encouraging people to apply for asylum. If they have an asylum pending case, that slows the process down. But no, there are no options. And we need a legislative fix to our immigration system, and until then, it's going to be one crisis like this after another.
That's the Reverend Carl Ruby. He's senior pastor at Central Christian Church in Springfield, Ohio. Reverend Ruby, thank you so much for talking with us.
You're welcome.
Yo, once upon a time up in Jersey,
Now at 5:30, a music festival that was set to kick off tomorrow in Bergen County has been canceled over alleged white supremacy ties.
News 4's Adam Harding is live in Garfield tonight with reaction there. Adam?
And this one certainly had a lot of people talking, Gilma. For several days, this created quite the controversy here in town. County officials made it very clear they did not want this concert to move forward. It was scheduled to go tomorrow and on Saturday, but in the 11th hour, the club behind us decided to pull the plug.
It was like a relief to my heart that so many spoke up so loudly to say, we do not want this here in our community.
Bergen County Commissioner Tracy Zor tonight praising the Vizsla Club in Garfield for canceling this weekend's heavy metal concert after concerns were raised about some of the bands set to perform.
It was from the neighbors. It was from the community. It was from the music community as well, who said this is not what we are.
It's called Vengeance Fest 7. It was supposed to take place Friday and Saturday, but it caused an uproar in the community. In a statement, Garfield police say they received information that the bands playing in the festival may have ties to white supremacy and anti-Semitism.
We have folks from every religious and ethnic and racial background, and that's our strength.
The club says they didn't organize the event, they simply rented out the space. In a statement they say they've always been committed to fostering a welcoming, respectful, and inclusive environment for all members of our community. We do not support or endorse any form of hatred, discrimination, extremism, racism, or ideology that conflicts with these values. We are currently reviewing our venue rental procedures to ensure that future events are more thoroughly vetted and align with the values and standards of our organization.
They did the right thing. They heard their concerns, and I truly believe they did not understand the ramifications and who this entity really was.
The event's promoter, when reached by email Thursday, wrote me, "Black metal bands have songs about extreme topics. I've said this before." He continued, "If someone doesn't want to attend the show, they have that option. That's all. It's metal music. That's all. It appears everyone is protected by the First Amendment except me and black metal musicians." Meantime, county leaders say canceling the festival was the right decision.
Hate has no home here in Bergen County.
So we are told tonight that police will have increased patrols throughout the weekend right near the club to make sure anybody who had a ticket for this weekend's event does not, in fact, show up. Meantime, the promoter on social media has indicated that he still plans to move forward with the concert this weekend. Only this time, he says, it will be at an undisclosed location. We're live in Garfield. I'm Adam Harding, News 4, New York.
Canada. We should move to Canada.
This family held a backyard barbecue last September at their home in Montréal-Nord. The night ended with guests getting pepper sprayed by police and this 77-year-old father in the hospital.
Things escalated so quick that we were scared.
The family says police first arrived at around 9 p.m. for a noise complaint, and they say they cooperated and turned the music down. But an hour later, the police returned, and things deteriorated quickly.
Wow, I got no words for that. I just don't have any words for that because for me, it was not necessary. It was unnecessary for them to do that. A family party, yeah.
C.O.W.S. says his mother, who was celebrating her 74th birthday that day, was injured when she was pushed to the ground by an officer. He says his father was pepper sprayed directly in his eyes and had to be taken to hospital for treatment.
Vraiment, c'est pas normal.
Earlier this month, a $158 noise ticket showed up in the mail. It came from an officer at Station 39. That's the same Montréal-Nord station where 16 officers are now under investigation for alleged racist acts against black and Arab residents. The scandal has rocked the SPVM, sparked protest, and renewed calls for a deeper look at police practices.
We were not surprised, honestly, because it's been a lot in Montreal-Nord.
Asked about the case, Montreal police said they don't comment on specific incidents to avoid influencing any potential proceedings. C.O.W.S. has filed complaints with both the Quebec Human Rights Commission and the Police Ethics Commission.
If I'm doing this, I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it also for the Montreal North community. So, yeah, I hope that some things will come out of this, yes.
Why haven't you learned anything?
Allegations of breaching school board policies and Ohio state laws were brought up at tonight's Cincinnati Public Schools Board meeting. Our Brooklyn Andrews was at that meeting and joins us live to bring us up to speed. Hi, Brooklyn.
Yeah, hello, good evening, Allie. All of those allegations were addressed tonight to the board at their public meeting by parents of Fairview Clifton schools. Some of the things that were allegedly brought up as concerns were things like the school culture and how things are handled there, as well as how their students are disciplined. A number of parents also brought up racial discrimination being a huge issue for them.
None of our kids have to go through these problems that they go through.
A handful of community members took to the podium at Monday night's CPS board meeting, all of them addressing what they say are ongoing issues with staff and administration at Fairview Clifton German Language School.
There are reports of FAPE and discipline violations and discrimination.
We believe there have been 24 board policy violations, 11 violations of the Ohio Revised Code, and 5 federal laws with which have not been complied.
Many parents recalling specific situations in which their child was subject to wrongful treatment by staff.
My 8-year-old son was given an out-of-school suspension following an incident on the playground. He was a second grader at the time with no prior disciplinary incidents of aggression or violence.
My daughter was subject to a search of her purse from a teacher. Teachers aren't allowed to do that. That has to be handled by security.
The issues presented raise questions about transparency, compliance, student support, and equitable treatment.
So I'm here to ask what specific policies or implicit bias might be contributing to the disproportionate numbers of office referrals for black students at Fairview.
The 30-plus parents who showed up to Monday night's meeting made their message clear and outlined what steps they expect to be taken next.
Now this alarming data has been provided, the board has an obligation to review it and to conduct a transparent investigation.
So I do want to make note that all of the comments that were made tonight were during the public comments section, which means that the board did not address any of the concerns brought up by parents directly, as that was just part of the public portion. But I did speak with the founder of the Cincinnati Parent Empowerment Network, who says she's working very closely with parents to try and get one-on-one time with board members and Superintendent Murphy to address these claims. For now, reporting live with photojournalist Aaron King, Brooklyn Andrews, Fox 19 Now.
Now everywhere is war, war, and until the ignoble and unhappy regime that hold our brothers in Angola.
It is decision day for the Supreme Court as the justices head into the final weeks of the term. We are still waiting to hear opinions on some of the most consequential cases on the docket. But the justices issued a ruling against a Louisiana man who wanted to sue officials for cutting his locks in prison. Let's get to CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. Jan, once again, we get to talk to you about this. So tell us about this particular ruling and what it could mean for other prisoners claiming religious rights.
Hi, Mugo. Well, this was one of 4 rulings from the court today, which means all the big cases are still remaining. We've got 12 or 13 left, depending on how you count them. We'll have another decision day on Thursday. So we're waiting on some of the ones we've been following, but let's talk about this one first. This involved a man by the name of Damon Landor, and he was a devout Rastafarian. And as a result of his religious beliefs, he did not cut his hair. His dreadlocks, in fact, went really almost down to his knees. He was arrested and sent to jail for minor drug possession, got 5 months. And so he argued, and he had a copy of a court opinion, that he was protected by federal law from having to shave his head. And everyone agrees that the law was clear, that this law protected the religious rights of prisoners. But prison officials in Louisiana didn't care. And they shaved his head anyway. And so he sued. Everyone agrees that was egregious what those prison officials did. But the question is, in his lawsuit, can he recover money damages against those prison guards under that federal law? And today, in a 6-3 decision, conservatives divided, the liberals split there. The justices said no, that law, Congress could have made it clear that he was entitled to money damages, but they didn't. And so he isn't able to recover. Again, not a necessarily kind of the most satisfying result when everyone agrees that this is, something that the prison guards should not have done. They violated his rights under that federal law, but there was no remedy for it. This was one, by the way, that the Trump administration lost. They were supporting the prisoner in this case, and I think that may kind of get us into the next few days of opinions when the Trump administration is going to have a couple more losses. Mugo.
Yeah, and speaking of that, as we near the end of this session, there's still several major cases, whether we're talking about the birthright citizenship case or even the cases that could affect the president and his power. Can you walk us through what else we're still waiting for? The big ones, apparently.
I would say of all the cases, and they really kind of got rid of all the underbrush today, except for the Landor case. But, they're important cases, but they're not the ones that are going to have this big sweep that we're expecting with the ones that are left. But of the ones that are left, I would say there's 4 or 5 that are major implications that we're closely following. You said the first one, birthright citizenship, whether President Trump can redefine what it means to be a citizen in this country. I think he's going to lose that one. I think the court's going to rule that no, he can't. And then there's a big case involving transgender rights and whether states can ban transgender athletes from participating in girls' sports. Obviously, a very hot-button cultural issue. I expect the court there to rule for the states and say that those state laws are okay. And then finally, the other one, the big 2 that are left, is kind of Trump's power or a president's power to fire some of those federal officials, whether they're at independent federal agencies like the Federal Trade Commission or, another case, the Federal Reserve Board. And in that one, I think the court's probably going to split the difference. They're going to say that Trump and other presidents before him, including Joe Biden, could fire members of those independent federal agencies because they have so much power now. They didn't back in the day. But on the Federal Reserve Board, they're probably going to say the Fed is different and he could not fire this commissioner for cause without even giving her a chance to have a hearing. So those are the big four. But again, there's a gun case, there's election law cases, there's a case involving temporary protected status, a dozen more, and they're all going to be something. So get ready, Mugo. We're going to have a lot to talk about on Thursday and next week, too, for sure. I don't think they will finish on Thursday, but we'll find out on Thursday.
All right, Jan Crawford, we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you so much for your time today.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Jim Grimes. Well, tonight, a viral video from Jensen Beach is drawing widespread attention. A fisherman was confronted by a beachgoer who said he was a firefighter, wanted him to move away from an area where children were playing. That argument quickly escalated, and the beachgoer's wife was recorded using racial slurs. CBS 12 News reporter Victoria DeCardenas has the video of that confrontation. She's joining us live tonight with more on the story. Victoria?
Jim, at Jensen Public Beach, fishing is allowed. It even says so right here on this sign. But for one man, a fisherman was just too close to children playing nearby, and that disagreement turned into a heated argument. And I do want to warn you, the language in this video is offensive.
You heard me. I didn't hear you. You said what? No. Hey. Say it again. No, you. You said you're gonna be.
A confrontation on Jensen Public Beach escalates into racial slurs, and it's all caught on camera. The video, which has been shared widely online, shows a black fisherman in a heated argument with another beachgoer. The 3-minute video begins with the fisherman, who is recording, asking why the man approached him in the first place.
You just walked over here, and you just decided you wanted to come give me a problem today, right?
He told you to be right there. That's common sense. Basic humanity is you don't go, even though you're allowed to, right where there's a bunch of kids.
If I'm allowed to, I'm allowed to. The kids gonna run wherever they want to run.
The fisherman says a lifeguard already told him where he could legally fish, and he insists he was following those directions.
If this is where he told me I need to be, that's where I'm at. And then you decided that you were going to police even more and come over here and say, you know what, I don't like where you're at. I want you to move, right?
Yeah, I think this is a poor choice for you.
This is a poor choice for you, buddy.
As the argument continues, the man claims he works for a fire department, but never identifies which one.
So he wouldn't have sent you over here. Where's your badge?
He said,
who are you? Where's your badge?
I'm fire department as well.
Where's your badge? This is the beach. This is not a fire.
On social media, Martin County Fire Rescue said the man in the video does not work for them, and he doesn't work for Palm Beach or St. Lucie counties. We checked.
This guy's just a male Karen for sure.
Beachgoer Judah Crombie says he's seen the video online and found it disturbing.
That right there was totally unnecessary.
The video ends with the man's wife trying to pull him away, but before leaving, she's heard repeating that racial slur and continuing to insult the fisherman.
Yeah, that's what you said, right?
Absolutely.
On camera.
100%. And a friend of the fisherman tells me tonight that the fisherman, was in town for a Ballin' on the Beach youth basketball tournament. He has since returned home to New Jersey. As for the man and the woman in that confrontation, their identities remain a mystery tonight. Reporting live in Jensen Beach, Victoria DeCardenas, CBS 12 News.
That's right. We're moving to Mississippi, and you know how that spells. M-I, crooked letter I, crooked letter I, hook back I.
The funeral for 1-year-old Cohen Wiley set for this weekend tonight. A memorial still stands outside the Walmart in Senatobia where he was killed by a police officer.
Action News 5's Michaela Redmond explains the close bond between this family that is now asking for prayers.
It's unimaginable pain that the family of 1-year-old Cohen Wiley is feeling right now. They say Cohen brought so much joy to the family, had a beautiful smile, and should still be here right now. That same message echoing through the memorial set up outside Walmart where Cohen was shot and killed by a Senatobia police officer on June 14th. The words "Forever One" in bold letters between two pictures.
That baby meant everything to me. He is all I had. My only and my first grandchild. I took his mother to the hospital to deliver him.
For Veronica Robertson, one of Cohen Wiley's grandmothers, the bond goes deeper. Robertson says she even got to name her first grandson, Cohen Cartier Wiley.
They grew a bond so inseparable. That baby loved his mother, and his mother loved him. What these people took from us can never be replaced.
Including Cohen's beautiful smile, sweet personality, and the way he brought so much joy to everyone he encountered. Cohen was shot during an alleged shoplifting call, bullets hitting him in the ribcage in the passenger seat, his mother holding him.
I ask that you keep my family in your prayers.
Cohen's father, Davion, still too overcome to speak.
What hurts me most is when my granddaughter asks where he is. She's only 3 years old. And to see her play along, I just want justice for my dude.
The family is demanding that all surveillance video be released by law enforcement and Walmart. An activist in Senatobia says the Wiley family isn't alone in their grief.
These are families who have been victims, recent victims, of Senatobia police violence. This is not our first walk around the block with Senatobia Police Department and their pathology, the sickness that they exercise.
Cohen Wiley's funeral will be held Saturday at Hosanna Family Worship Center in Pope, Mississippi. Reporting in Senatobia, Michaela Redman, Action News 5.
And if you plan to attend, here's what you need to know about Baby Cohen's services. Visitation will be from 4 to 7 p.m. on this Friday at Senatobia Church of Christ on Gilmore Street. And as Michaela mentioned, the funeral is just a 30-minute drive from the church there in Senatobia to Pope. The funeral will be that Saturday at 2 p.m. at Hosanna Family Worship Center.
And community organizers say they're planning other events in Senatobia to coincide with those funeral services. Building Bridges Coalition says it's planning a march on Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning at the corner of Panola and Porter Streets. And after the visitation that evening Friday, it's holding a town hall meeting at Fairway Christian Church. Saturday evening, it's holding a vigil in Sardis.
The Chico Police Department confirmed today that autopsy reports show both victims killed in the deadly library shooting in Chico died as a result of shotgun wounds. Their names are Robert Johnson and Jacob Cody Hull, who you see here. Here on the left, this is the first time we're seeing a photo of Robert Johnson. And this is a new photo of Hull, seen here with the little girl who was injured during the shooting after being cut by broken glass. The suspected shooter came before a judge today for the first time this afternoon. Action News Now reporter Bea Barbosa was there in the courtroom and brings us the latest.
Bradley Sayer was in court this afternoon and was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with additional allegations for use of a shotgun. Butte County District Attorney Mike Ramsey says Sayer faces life without the possibility of parole, and they will not be seeking the death penalty. This afternoon, Sayer did not enter a plea and was not granted bail. When Sayer was walking in and out of court, he appeared to flash a hand gesture that has been associated with white supremacist groups. Ramsey identified the types of guns at the scene as a shotgun and 2 .22 caliber rifles. He says Sayer took all 3 guns from his father's bedroom closet. Ramsey says that Sayer had not used a shotgun before.
I mean, it was a situation in which we were very, very lucky that there weren't more victims, basically because the suspect here was unfamiliar with the shotgun that he was using. He had never shot a shotgun before. He didn't know that you could load up that shotgun in the tube of the shotgun and rapidly expend rounds.
Ramsey says less than a half hour before the shooting, Sayer uploaded a video of himself wearing the t-shirt with "Natural Selection" written on it to social media sites that discuss mass shootings, and that on that post he said he intended to go to the library in Chico and shoot as many people as he could. Ramsey says federal partners have been working on search warrants for the sites Sayer was on. Ramsey tells me they are still looking into whether they can also charge Sayer with attempted murder. He says about 20 people were inside the library and that the bravery of library staff also helped protect those inside as they were able to get people into a back room and lock the door. Ramsey also says that Sayer attempted to set the library on fire by striking kitchen matches, but that when that did not work, he took a larger round and tried to load it into the shotgun, allegedly with the attempt to commit suicide. But it was a rifle round, so it fell through the barrel of the gun. He says at that point, Sayer came outside and surrendered to Chico police. For Action News Now, I'm Bea Barbosa.
Sayer will return to court July 16th for further arraignment.
Come here, Susie. You remember me? Your daddy's friend, Henry?
No, don't!
Tonight, a Houston police officer is accused of a sex crime against a child. I'm Eric Barajas.
And I'm Gina Gaston. The officer has been relieved of duty while his attorney says he vehemently denies the allegations. ABC 13's Maya Shea is live downtown at police headquarters with the story. Maya?
Yeah, the officer we're talking about, his name is Pablo Diaz-Bucio. He's been an officer, according to records we have obtained, since 2023. His attorney tells me they've been cooperating with this investigation since the initial allegations are made, and they plan to vehemently defend their side of the story in court.
Also from Houston, Pablo Diaz.
This is Officer Pablo Diaz, graduating in 2023 as part of Cadet Class 260. Houston Police confirms he's now relieved of duty. According to court records, a child under 14 complained last October that Diaz allegedly sexually assaulted her. Since then, Diaz's attorney says the officer has been on leave and cooperating with investigators. Court records show Officer Diaz is accused of forcing the child to come in contact with his sexual organs. It is a charge he vehemently denies through his attorney. Earlier today, the officer turned himself in, was given a bond, and posted it right away. Yes, so the officer was accompanied by his attorney and was able to walk to a district court judge, which then issued the bond, and he was able to post it and leave. We're not sure how long the legal process will take, but his lawyer telling me they will fight it every step of the way. For now, we're live downtown. Maya Shea, ABC 13, Eyewitness News.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy, information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, June 27, 2026. So I have been told. We can get right to one of the things that we've talked about for years. Mr. Fuller has emphasized, hey, the most powerful white people, racists, they do the classifying. That last report, Houston police officer accused of sexual misconduct with children. Officer Pablo Diaz-Bucio, spelled Diaz-Buscio. Pablo Diaz-Bucio. Go check. I found a couple photos online. Do you think he would be accepted as a white person? White Hispanic? Non-Hispanic white? Do you think he would be accepted as a white person? My vote, yes. At least the pictures that I've seen, since there are charges, there should be court hearings and all of that, so we should be able to see this person. Probably in HD, maybe even video, so we can take a long look at this person under good lighting, no makeup. What does he look like? Do we think he would be accepted as a white person? Maybe even they'll have this on some of the court documents. They'll have his racial classification listed. So we'll pay attention to that. But folks can check. Do you think Pablo Diaz Bucio, officer accused of sexual misconduct with a child, do you think he would be accepted as a white person? Any hoodles. We had, make sure I get in, we were supposed to have a program this past Wednesday. White guest. COINTELPRO, excited. He said he got the Ebola. Now, he didn't renege on the total. He asked to reschedule, so we will do it up. July is right around the road, so we will just do it up in July. Now, if he still has the Ebola in July, then we'll say he reneged. But at least at this point, he got a teaspoon of the Ebola, and hopefully, he'll get some NyQuil, shake it off, and then we will do it up about COINTELPRO in a couple of weeks. But we were supposed to be here Wednesday, and Gus T was ready to roll. And in fact, Gus T we will have to see, might be able to weaponize his illness delay. But we'll have to see. That's wishful thinking. We'll see if we can make it constructive. But he was already, I will say for the record, he was already in trouble. Generally speaking, if, I think that most of the time with a white guest, I try to get as much constructive info as possible, and that'll be the case with this person as well. But if there's any practice of racism, dishonesty, incorrect usage of words in their text, practice of racism, I'll say it again, the more of that sort of content there is, for those guests, I generally say the best you can hope is that something happens where I get distracted, or there's a lot of racism, so I'm not able to read the whole book or something of that nature. And even then, that doesn't happen too often, even under bad circumstances, but which could have been the case here. But even here, I had already read about half of his book. And he got the Ebola early, right? Like, this wasn't oh man, I'm about to die the day before. This was days in advance, and I had already read half of the book. So I was already saying, ooh-wee, you are in trouble, Whitey. Now, I could have finished the book this week, and take good notes so that I don't forget, so that I can just go back and do a review when he comes weeks down the road. And hey, we might be able to weaponize this delay. You will just be in even more trouble. Should have just sucked it up, pulled I'm going to tough it out as a white man, and you just forgive me. I might have to blow my nose and get the sniffles every now and then, but I'm going to tough it out. Should have just done it that way. Anyway, Gus T was ready to roll. We'll be ready to roll in July. We should have a different white man here later in the week on Sunday. So hopefully folks can, I guess I do the PSA now, since we're heading into a holiday weekend. This is especially dangerous because July 4, unless I'm mistaken, is actually going to fall on Saturday next week, unless I'm mistaken. So, oh man, you talk about lose a finger, an eye, kill 15 people, might do a little bit of it all, because if it's on Saturday, and a lot of people, that means they get off on Friday. Oh my goodness, we got to act a fool the whole week. We might start acting a fool on Monday. Fireworks, I've already started seeing the signs, because I don't think you can do, legally, I don't think they allow you to do fireworks in Seattle proper. So I've already seen the signs, don't you get that? No fireworks. Kent County. But obviously they still have lots of renegades. They do it. Anyway, not yours truly, but lawbreakers who still do all of that. Thus, they have the signs and such. But the PSA, sobriety would be best. I did share on social media and such. I've talked about it here. We are already in the 100 deadliest days. That's what they call it, not my label. But apparently white people who study transportation, maybe we'll ask non-Clemson grad one of these times because he studies this sort of thing. Is this true? The 100 deadliest days on the road in the summertime, lots of, especially younger people. So if you have offspring, grandchildren, you yourself, teens, 20s, have been driving that long, this is a time where you, especially, sobriety would be best. If you're going to hop behind the wheel, especially if you're going to have more than one victim of white supremacy in the vehicle, if you're going to have more than one black male in the vehicle, super codified. Can't be messing around. If it's going to be Devontae and Jamal and Tyrone, like, whoa, buckle up. 10 and 2, hands on the wheel. They're going to drive the speed limit and no loud bumpity bump. Act like we are in a system of white supremacy. And really for the summertime, that 100 deadliest days, I believe that because you have so many people out on the road, young people, old people, drinking, drugs, not paying attention, distracted driving, just on and on and on and on and on. Being alert. And Dr. Cambot, he talked about this all the time. He said, do not avoid being out late. Now, if you're in Seattle, that's easy to say because it doesn't get dark here until about 10:30 around this time of year. Hey, and it starts to get light, as I've complained about, at about 4 a.m. So you really only have a short window where you would have to be inside in this part of the world during the summertime. But for normal people, that might be a slightly larger set of hours where you, hey, once it hits about 10 o'clock, 9:30, shut it down. Now for younger people, oh my, what are you talking about? You sound like some prude. I'm not grandma. We are in hey, Cohen Wiley didn't survive the Walmart. Jonathan Farrell, I can think of a lot of names. Renisha McBride. The last two incidents that I looked at, I have to go get the timestamp for Cohen Wiley, but I know it was at night. Renisha McBride, Jonathan Farrell, they were both killed by white people late at night. Dare I say early morning, because it was after midnight, so technically it would be very early in the morning for both of them. Michigan, North Carolina. Be inside. I think Jonathan Farrell may have just missed the 100 deadliest days because I think he was a teaspoon after Labor Day, but not by much. Not by much. That's September 2013. You can check me, make sure I'm correct. But talk to younger people because they do say that's the group that is especially at risk during this time period. But talk to everybody, especially if you know you got folks that are going to be doing road trips and vacations and family reunions and all the rest of it. Hey, buckle up. That's an easy one. And I say, buckle up. Hopefully it won't be needed, and you get the extra. In many cases, that right there frequently can be pretense for officers stopping you. I got to give you a ticket because look like you didn't have a seatbelt on, and then, hey, what you got? Is that reefer in the vehicle? Let me poke around, make sure you're not trafficking narcotics and Mad Dog unsealed and all the rest of it. Buckle up. Double layer of safety. Hopefully you won't need it for either the race soldiers or the accident. All of that said, sobriety would be best. Now, before I get to some of the news reports for this here week, last weekend in June, first, I guess, full week of summer official, man, Mr. Fuller, genius stated yesterday. He said sometimes there are messages that are sent just for you, the one individual victim of white supremacy. Sometimes. Dr. Cambon talked about this as well, and he connected it to my PSA. The great late Dr. Cambon, also a genius, I think. He said, Dr. Cambon specifically, you get these messages from the Creator. They're frequently associated with your assignment. What is your purpose for being in existence? Why are you alive on a planet dominated by white supremacy racism? What are you supposed to be doing with your time and energy? Dr. Cambon said that the Creator will send you those messages, things you're supposed to be doing, things you're supposed to be paying attention to. Dare I say, capital A, your assignment. He said if you are drinking the Mad Dog, you're smoking the reefer. You know, Dr. Cambon, even more than those two, and he did mention those two frequently, the alcohol, and he did mention those two frequently. But even more than that, you know, he was a fellow vegan. He used to mention the potato chips. We got him in the archives. He said, hey, if you're not serious now, you just want to sit around and eat potato chips, Snicker bars, drink Coca-Cola. He used to say that all the time, like he thought, hey, if we are really serious, then that should be reflected in what you eat every day. Dr. Cambon used to talk about that all the time. Wrote a whole book about that. Subtle suicide and bad food, potato. He was talking about that all the time, like he really had a vendetta against them potato chips. Not quite ultra processed, but certainly not healthy food. Race soldiers win. You get a mouthful of them Cheetos, win for the racists. Gastrointestinal cancers. Get to that later. But he said if you are woofing down all them potato chips, Coca-Cola, ultra processed goodies, you're not, one, you might be constipated or dealing with whatever else with all that. So you might not get those messages. In fact, those signals might get weaker. You get further away from your residence and the Wi-Fi signal gets weaker and weaker and weaker, eventually it drops out altogether. He said you keep eating bad food and Mad Dog 2020 and you watching the TV all day long, that signal from the Creator just gets weaker, 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 because you're not really even paying attention to it. Very important. Very important. Kind of directing what we are supposed to be doing with our time and energy. But sometimes it is really important that you specifically listen to that signal, because if it is in any way related to our assignment, and I would have to think if you are classified as black, dare I say if you are classified as non-white, anywhere in the known universe, any signal that you get from the Creator about whatever constructive you need to be doing or paying attention to in your life would have to be connected to white supremacy racism. Would have to be. Have to be. Mandatory. Any area of people activity, any spot on the globe, any place in the universe. Directly, indirectly, probably directly, but either way. It is really important because I've concluded, we asked Mr. Fuller about this, it's in the archives, his 18th visit to the C.O.W.S, 2012. The vast majority of non-white people, we are not serious about replacing white supremacy with justice. We are not concerned with that at all. C.O.W.S listeners, will sit and listen to these old programs and want to email and waste time talking to Gus T. Let me talk to old Gus T and talk about nonsense, and boy, you're not going to believe what I've watched on TV this week. and will state explicitly, I have no interest in replacing white supremacy with justice. Legions of non-white people, C.O.W.S listeners, have said that explicitly, and then even if we don't say it explicitly, our conduct shows this. We haven't solved this problem. I say, hey, that's one of the main things that I learned, getting those FBI files, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, her file specifically, and that they've been snooping on her since she was 19. We haven't been on our assignment at all. They can't snoop on every 19-year-old in the world. That's not even possible. I don't even think they could snoop on half. We haven't been on our assignment. Not even close. So, if you are even halfway trying to be about the business of replacing white supremacy with justice, it is very important. Listen to those messages, because it might just be you, and I cannot emphasize that enough. To see that happen 3 times. Now, 2, I posted online, I said, wow, I did not get the files in my hand yet. So I don't, generally do all the shouting and talking about it until I actually have the files in my hand. Okay. I had some FBI files on Dr. Welsing in hand. I didn't have all of them, and I don't have all now. But I knew, oh wow, they started spying on Dr. Welsing at 19 because they wrote to me, they being FBI officials, white people, wrote to me and said, oh, okay, we got files dating back to this date, 1954. She would be 19, maybe 18, depending on when they started that year. But I didn't have the files about, now, what were they doing spying on her at 19? You can go back in the archives and hear all of that. Same thing happened this time. I've been informed about the existence of files. I don't have them in my hands yet. 2 different investigations. But I say this is 3 separate incidents, 4, at least 4 different instances have happened this year. Many of them within the last 60 days. Where, according to the evidence, I can start with Dr. Welsing, FBI files at 19. Apparently, no one else thought, let me submit a FOIA request to the FBI to get Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's files. Now, people may say that's not important. Victims guaranteed qualified? I think that is massively important that the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover specifically, has been spying on Dr. Welsing since she was 19, at least. I think that is massively important. Changes the record on her scholarship, life, times, work, everything. Massive extra chapter to all of this. No one thought to ask, hey, maybe we should submit a request for that, even though she's been deceased for 10 years, so that would have been public. And I said, that's shame on Gus T too, but I mean, hey, I was the first one to think of this and the first one to get them, according to the FBI. I asked you all, did any of you all know this? Resounding no. Not one person said they already knew this. Now, I could have been eating Cheetos, drinking Mad Dog, where, hey, Dr. Welsing did say, read Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly. I did. Interviewed him multiple times, again this year. I could have not been paying attention to that, never got those records. Now, hopefully, someone would have made that request at some point, but man, sometimes you are the only one to get that message. And I said, this has happened repeatedly this year. Court cases. This one I could publicize because this is already a matter of public record, and it is going to be public. It's just a matter of when. I'm just not saying as much about it now because, whatever. I could tell you today, I could tell you later. But man, there are major court cases where this was on TV, this was on YouTube. They have the 48 hours and all these folks go talk about it and true crime, and no one thought, hey, white people are hiding information. We should try to get that. Gus T was the only one curious enough, interested enough, not distracted enough. Hey, white people are concealing some information here. We should try to get that. It happened again. At least 4 different times this year. I'll be able to, once I have all the documents in hand, because then I can go through now. How important is it that Gus T was the only person who thought there might be a lie here? There might be a big lie here. Or the FBI might have been spying on Dr. Welsing. Or white people might be concealing massively important information. I would much rather do it when I have the documents in hand, so then I can say, bam, Gus T was the only person who thought something like this existed, and then just start reading. And just keep, Gus T was the only person, apparently, who thought something like this existed, and or the only person who thought that something like this existed, and then put in the time and energy to actually go out and see, is it true? Yes, it is. That's why sometimes you are the only one who gets that message from the Creator. It is very important. And I have to, when I get the pages in hand for this, I will have to emphasize that sometimes it will be with tremendous opposition. That signal is coming through, and or tremendous opposition in following through on that signal. Tremendous opposition, even when it's just, hey, I think white people might be concealing information. Tremendous opposition to just, is that true? Even opposition from non-white people. Now, this isn't, hey, I got to convince everybody that all white people are racist. No. Just, hey, we don't have all the details here. We should try to... I didn't call nobody racist. I didn't say we got to agree on how to replace white supremacy with justice. Hey, we don't have all the facts. We should try to get all the facts. That might be the case sometimes. Even then, if you get that signal from the Creator, make your best effort to follow through. You might be the only person to get that signal, and unfortunately, that is terrible. I think I said with the Dr. Welsing files, that wasn't really any enjoyable process. In fact, I said, I feel a little anxiety. Felt kind of in danger. Need to say something about this for personal safety reasons. Remember, I said all that in the archive. I said repeatedly, I said, man, I would have much rather interviewed somebody else about all of this, and they can tell us about the process of how they got these files and what they found and all that. And were you nervous? And did you think they were going to come and get you? And all that? I would have much rather done it that way, as opposed to I had to be the one to do all of this. And I said, well, white people know that you asked for these files. They gave them to you. Now, that would be the case for all 4 of these, especially since you are the only person who asked for these files. Even now, for some of this, after all these years, you are the only person to ask for these files. That was not what Gus T was looking for, because that's not generally anything to brag about for a privileged black male in the system of white supremacy. That generally is the type of thing where, Abraham Bolden. That type of thing. Something bad is going to happen to you. Which could be the case in Michael Brown Jr. I brought that up in it. That's the reason why, even in spite of that, do your best to follow through if you get that message from the Creator, because Michael Brown Jr., John Crawford, Cohen Wiley, none of them were doing anything to counter racism, unless I've been misinformed. Unless you think John Crawford getting a toy gun at Walmart, unless you think that's working against racism, white supremacy, I do not. Not that I'm faulting him, I'm just saying you don't have to be doing anything to upset white people, and you can still be obliterated and terrorized in a system of white supremacy racism. So, since that could happen anyway, may as well have it happen while we are attempting to replace white supremacy with justice. Because that's our assignment, not shooting toy guns. No disrespect to John Crawford III, just reminding us of our assignment. Replace white supremacy with justice. If we had been on our assignment, John Crawford III would be here. He could be shooting toy guns and nobody would care. He'd be hanging out. His dad would be fine. John Crawford Jr. Anywho, listen to the signals that you get, especially if they're about something constructive, and I would say especially about, is that true? Because that is we are in a system that is primarily maintained through deception. Anything that you get, now, is that true? Is that true? The same, vigilance that you all apply to Gus T and assuming that we got to fact check everything he says because he doesn't know what he's talking about, apply that in a more general sense, and especially to people classified as white. Is this true? Non-white people as well, victims of racism. We are made to lie to uphold the system of white supremacy racism. All of this requires a lot of dishonesty. White people, non-white people, a lot of dishonesty. So, if you are getting a signal about there's a lack of truth here, I just don't think this is true, investigate. Investigate. Get as much info. That's why I said for some of it, it might be, well, let's get all the facts. Especially if there seems to be some difficulty in ascertaining all the facts. Oh man, let's get all the facts. Then we can accurately surmise. Now, is this true? Massively important in a system of white supremacy racism. Also, Gus T did a teaspoon of thinking, just a teaspoon. I said Dr. Cambon, he talked about diet. He was vegan many years. Gus T, vegan now for 8 years. 8 years, I believe. Consecutively. Nothing to brag on, but just for the record. But I was thinking, and I'd been vegan before. I stopped and then returned to the plant-based eating. But I think it may have been that I have only been teased about my plant-based diet by people classified as black. I have been pondering on that for a couple of weeks now, trying to see throughout my life, is that true? I have been able to think of a number of black people who have teased me about plant-based eating. and I've talked about some of when I was in Milwaukee last June, and them mocking me about eating my plant-based food when we were on lunch breaks from the Sade C. Robinson murder trial, and then sharing some of my food with them. And when I was in Atlanta as well, I'm trying to think really hard, but it may be I have only been mocked about my plant-based diet by other people classified as black. And then even what I thought was more pitiful about it, I've only been mocked about my plant-based diet by people classified as black, many of whom were not in the best health and who did not eat well at all. I was thinking, did I get mocked about my plant-based diet by someone who smokes cigarettes? Yes, by a privileged black male who smokes cigarettes. Yes. Worthy of great pity. Even now, this is no brag at all, because I didn't have no conflict with this privileged black male. And even if I did, that ain't no brag. Did you get mocked about your plant-based diet by a privileged black male who smoked cigarettes and died before the age of 55? Yes. Black male privilege. Anyway, Dr. Cambon did talk all the time, as did Mr. Fuller, correct eating, about, hey, what you eat is a massive component of replacing white supremacy with justice. That said, they talked about the earthquake in Venezuela. I guess it's earthquakes in Venezuela, and even in other parts of South America, so-called. Lots of non-white people in that region of the world. We had our guest on the program earlier this year. She was a Venezuelan native, although she is not there now. It seemed because of her work on racism, white supremacy, and the mistreatment of black Venezuelans. But they have lots of non-white people in that region, hundreds of deaths. That death toll will probably rise, unfortunately, as they get further numbers about what has taken place. I was thinking the same thing, like, wow, they just invaded this region of the world. I can't say we, race soldiers from this part of the world, they just invaded Venezuela, so-called, just a few months ago. Now they're going to come in and do aid? Like, what? System of white supremacy. I also thought, now, have we heard, I'm talking about people classified as black specifically, have they been talking about so-called HARP during all of this? Because I know that was a common one. I remember back when they had the earthquake in Haiti. I think that was 2010. It's happened a few other times. There'll be an earthquake and there'll be a segment, not everybody, but a segment of people classified as black who, I think that's HARP, and white people got that technology. That's a sort of, that also I would classify as worthy of great pity. I have never heard any black person who I study tectonics. I study HARP technology. I've never heard a black person where that's the case, where they have some sort of hard science degree where I can tell you so that you'll understand, so that a 10-year-old Justice, co-host of the Cows, so that she can understand what this technology is, so-called HARP, how it was employed against Haiti, Venezuela, why would they do all of that? Never. It'll just be some reference with no citations, no data, and from someone who is not an expert on earthquakes, tectonics, biology, none of that. Geology, none of that. I have not heard that this time around. Maybe all that's done, but I'm just curious. Did people hear that where they think this might be HAARP technology? I'm not even saying that it's not. I'm just saying I'm certainly not informed enough about it to even reference, to get into all that. For someone to ask a question, what could I say based on intelligence and evidence? All right. Let's see. The so-called heat wave, I didn't hear anybody say HAARP about that either. The heat wave that is impacting so-called Western Europe, where you would have large populations of people classified as white, and even they've had the heat wave impacting large parts of the U.S. We had like a teaspoon of that, and I mean a teaspoon of that at the beginning of the week here in Seattle. I think we had 3 days that were above 80 degrees, which, man, here in Seattle, if any weather where it's above like 75 degrees and sunny, oh man, the weather. Can we buy every air conditioning unit that you have? Oh, we're about to melt. Oh, we're dying in the climate change. And oh, we're going to have to move the pride festivities inside. And just anything above 75, anything above like 80. Oh, apocalypse. It's hell on earth. God is punishing it. Like, they really just cannot handle any sort of heat at all. And I mean, I have been here for a number of years at this point, but again, now I did live in Atlanta and California, where they have substantially warmer weather, and especially in Atlanta, substantially more humidity. Just, so I mean, you will not be complaining about no 80-degree heat in Atlanta. That is like, Jesus Christ, thank you. Like, we maybe got a little bit of a reprieve today, especially if it's 80 degrees in June or July. Anyway, the so-called heat wave, we had a teaspoon of it here in Seattle. We had, I think, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, it was above 80 degrees. It did not get above 90 degrees on any of those days, I will add. And the temperature today is 68 degrees. 67 degrees. It dropped 1 degree since we've been on the air. That would be 18 degrees Celsius. Maybe a notch lower because it dropped to 67 Fahrenheit. But I mean, that's our current temperature. So I mean, it has not been, and it's been below 70 degrees every day since Wednesday. I think Wednesday was the last day that we had that 80-degree heat. It dropped into the 50s that night, and it has not been any warmer than 68 Fahrenheit since Thursday, last 3 days. And no day for the next 7 days is scheduled to be above 68 degrees. So I think I've had this experience before where they've been complaining about heat wave and humidity and all the extreme weather events, and in Seattle, we still got our winter clothes here in Seattle. It's sunny, but it's going to be in the 50s tonight too. So winter clothes, you got to turn the heat on. Anyway, they were talking about how hard the heat is hitting the white people of Western Europe, and they said that they're having Middle Eastern style heat. I don't know what that means. Mr. Fuller talked about that word Middle Eastern, but what? Middle Eastern style heat? Like, what? Now, I've heard Africa heat before, equatorial heat. I've got all that. And maybe that's what that means. Middle East heat, that's Africa heat, that's the same thing. That's what they mean. Africa hot. Equatorial hot. Like, oh, okay, got it. I got it now. But just, that was a strange one. And the heat, it reminded me, I think this could be a part of end stage white supremacy, where people with less melanin, I think they might be more susceptible to these heat events. And they're talking about having more heat related deaths in these areas because they're not accustomed to having this Middle Eastern heat. They can't take it. And what are we going to do? This could be a part of, they've had all these, we've been playing some of the reports about we got to get new sun screens that are more effective and all the rest. So this could be a part of the end of white supremacy racism. I was even thinking the rise in heat in these areas where they're not accustomed to having all this hot weather, is that going to impact fertility rates in these regions? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I would be curious about that, if that's, or even if that just, does that add to the anxiety of white genetic annihilation, these heat-related events in areas where you have higher concentrations of white people? Have to see. And they said that Europe is heating at twice the rate of the rest of the world. I thought that was very important as well, because if that is the temperature rise specifically having a concentrated impact on regions where white people live, does that impact fertility rates or even their impression or anxiety about people classified as white, their ability to reproduce themselves? Have to investigate, more thinking. They had the report about our cells are aging more rapidly. Now, my thought process, we are in a system of white supremacy racism. Even you go just to the basic of what I've been saying the whole time. We do not eat the same food that people on the planet ate 70 years ago, 60 years ago, I would say. We do not eat the same food at all. Like the diet that your grandparents and great-grandparents grew up on is, I'd say especially your great-grandparents and back, is substantially different. The mass production of food and all the ultra-processed food, you just did not have all of that stuff. Microwaves, you didn't have all of that stuff. Lunchables and Hot Pockets, none of that stuff existed like 70 years ago. So people were just not eating that alone. Just that alone. You didn't have DoorDash and Uber. The way that people have been eating, I would say for at least the last 20 years, is so radically different, at least in this part of the world. And that's, in my view, that's what they're talking about when they say the so-called developing nations, that they're adopting the Western lifestyle, sad, standard American diet. They're adopting that, so that's adding to their health problems and speeding the aging of their cells. I think a massive component has got to be the food. If you eat ultra-processed food and potato chips, Cheetos, Snicker bars, hot dogs. Dr. Cambon said that hot dog, tater chip. If that's what and the soda pop used to get on them Coca-Colas, got to wash all that salt and sodium down, get your Coca-Cola and Mountain Dew and all the rest of it, Fresca and Dr. Pepper. Yes, I think, and even that, if you rewind 60, 70 years, I don't think you had your great-grandparents and such. I know they did not drink no soda pop in the volume that we do today. They just did not. You had are you serious? You couldn't even they didn't have supermarkets like that. One thing, if I had to pick one alone, the food, it has changed so radically, where you had people, every day people cooked. Yeah, you might go out and eat or what have you, but people cooked. These are real potatoes, real vegetables. Everything is not ultra processed and prepackaged and plasticed up and all the rest of it, and potato chip, and that just, people were not eating all of that. That alone, and then all the fast food and all the rest of it, I think that alone easily has probably had all the gastrointestinal cancers, D'Angelo, Chadwick Boseman. I think that right there is probably a massive component of it. And just, hey, I don't want to cook, or I don't have time to cook, or I don't have money to get no organic asparagus. I tell you, hey, Gus T eating high on the hog this week in Seattle. I dodged all the FIFA madness, and I had yellow watermelon, which I've had many times already this year. That was not my first time having yellow watermelon this year. Just got it again. That was, in fact, I think I've had it several times this month specifically. Just for June, I've been picking out on yellow watermelon. Might get me some more tomorrow. I don't know. I had the red watermelon, and I even need to get specific because they have so many different ones. I want to get me one of those that has the star that's really dark. It's almost niggardly dark. It's got little yellow star spots, and I want to get one of those because I don't think I've ever tried one. Those are supposed to be really good, so I either do that or the yellow tomorrow. I'm a watermelon connoisseur. Mr. Fuller said, I was so ignorant, I didn't grasp. Mr. Fuller said, we replace white supremacy with justice. I retire. I get away from you victims, and I grow cucumbers. I thought that was a little, I don't really like cucumbers that much, but okay. I said, man, that is pretty intelligent. Genius, Fuller. I would retire, get away from you victims. I would grow watermelon. And I didn't even realize, oh man, that's the same thing. The cucumbers and the watermelon. I even have smoothie where you put those together, but I would grow orange watermelon, yellow watermelon, and there I would have to figure because there are certain, there are 100 different types of watermelon. I talked about this before where we're ignorant about everything. I was too. I didn't know that they have 100 different types of watermelon. That's why you have the orange, yellow, and all the different types of red. There are supposed to be some brands of red that are so out of this world good and sweet that slave masters, they had devised all these wacky booby traps on their plantation to make sure people didn't, not just niggers, anybody, make sure nobody stole their watermelons. But I want to figure out which of the reds are supposed to be the best. I would get 2 or 3 of those, orange, yellow. I would grow watermelons. Total watermelon connoisseur, Gus T. But anyway, so I had yellow watermelon, red watermelon, orange watermelon, and I got orange for the first time this week. Oh, so good. Man, I'm so spoiled, but that right there, eating fresh watermelon, even fresh watermelon with seeds in it, that is so radically different from most of the food that people eat now. Fruit by the foot. Nobody ate that 70 years ago. Like Bay Area Mom, when she tells us, you can just listen to the foods that she rattles off. These children, many of them obese and all the rest of it, they didn't have Hawaiian sweet rolls 70 years ago. They didn't have Lunchables 70 years ago. They didn't have fruit by the foot 70 years ago. They didn't have Go-Gurt 70 years ago. Yes, they did have bread. They didn't have Hawaiian sweet rolls prepackaged for everybody to go out and buy a pound or a loaf a day. They didn't have that. Fruit by the foot. I don't even know what are you talking about? You'd sound like an alien going back and saying, y'all got the fruit by the foot? What? What? Lunchables? What? Even Chips Ahoy. You would have had fresh made chocolate chip cookies, 1950s, like that. That's what I'm saying. We do not eat anywhere close to the same thing that your great grandparents, depending on, I guess, your age, your parents, grandparents, depending on how old you are, but we just do not eat the same foods that they did about 70 years ago. Even Mr. Fuller, you can go back and hear some of his talks and such, where he says, because black people, we weren't going out to eat and doing DoorDash 70 years ago. You had a lot of black people. They were so poor, they had small gardens for necessity that would supplement whatever groceries that they got, not Lunchables. So they were getting fresh produce that they grew, probably not drowning in Roundup. Helicopter overhead. Look at that. Look at that. Anyway, but the food has and food at what you are. Don't they say you are what you eat? If you have black people and many, I can even say, dang, that's right. My grandmother, grandfather on both sides of the family, they both had gardens. How many younger generations of folks have gardens now? That's what, and again, now, if you do your own gardening, you don't even have to worry about organic. You knew what you put in it. Anyway, that would be my non-scientific theory that the food is probably right at the center, and then you go and dump Roundup and all the pesticides and Agent Orange on everything. That probably would go a long way to explaining, oh, yeah, people aren't as healthy anymore. I see. Dr. Cesspoolians, Dr. Cambon, that's it, Cesspoolians. Yes. And they said, and bowel cancer, that was the one. Bowel cancer is a type of gastrointestinal cancer. Chadwick, Bozeman, D'Angelo, quite a few of those. Especially younger people getting these sorts of cancers, which they were talking about, hey, all this cells aging quicker. Maybe that's why we're having more of these young people, Chadwick, D'Angelo, leaving here so quick with all these cancers. Gastrointestinal. Could be. And the Dollar General, I'd even forgot. All the people now, they keep you in such a state of poverty. I can't afford no Brussels sprouts Gus tea. I can't afford no orange watermelon Gus tea. I got to get my veggies and my produce from the Dollar General. People didn't do that 70 years ago. Just that alone. From 70 years ago, I'm poor, so I have to get a garden. Now, I'm poor, I got to go to Dollar General. That is a massive change and not an improvement. And they had the report, East LA, the fire at the Lineage Logistics Cold Storage Facility in Boyle Heights, East LA. The racial demographics of East LA, 2% of the population in East LA is classified as white. I thought that was a typo or some nonsense. I asked again to switch it up because I thought I had done something stupid. I said, well, what's the racial demographics for Boyle Heights, non-white to white? They said it's 92 to 97% non-white in Boyle Heights. One more time, I can't breathe. They said this is impacting the breathing in East LA for a population that is well over 90% not white. It's not very many black people there, but it's hordes of non-white people there. They said this is impacting the air quality in the greater Los Angeles region. Duh. I've heard that before. When did you hear that before, ignorant Negro who doesn't live in California? Well, I did live in California, and I just visited California, and I complained about the air quality the whole time I was there. I said, that Neely Fuller Jr. is a genius. Neely Fuller said, what is better than breathing? Helicopter didn't mess up my sound clip there. We got the silence. Thank you. Now, they had the wildfires last year in LA. White people are doing a decade-long study to see how much did that destroy our air quality and health. The evidence so far, it had a stunning impact and continues to be a detriment to the health of Los Angelenos. A year later, year and a half later, really.
added lead and all that in the air and dust reset. They said it set us back. Our whole effort to clean up the air set us back a good 10-15 years. Who knows? And now you got this. And they seem like they have all kinds of industrial fires and all the rest. It's just, man. And they said, you heard it in the report, man, this Area 1 has already been hit hard with all this type of industrial contamination and pollution, a terrible thing to waste. And this has an impact on the air quality beyond this region. Duh. The wind does blow, yes? Oh, okay. Cesspoolians. And then right into the Roundup, Dr. Cambon, the dump poison everywhere, and then sit around, everybody got all the cancer, D'Angelo ain't with us, the cells aging, squirting, you got to put the Roundup, on everything, and all the other cesspoolians. Chemicals. Dr. Cambon talked about that too. And tackle football. Dump Roundup on everything and tackle football, and then wonder, can't get right thinking. The section on South Bend, where they had the hours-long meeting about the racism at LaSalle Park in South Bend, Indiana. Shout to Jim Jones, Indiana native. It reminded me, our white guest who was with us just a few months back, and he talked about South Bend, Indiana is one of the areas where they had a racial purge of black people. I am very eager to see in all that hours of talking, did they bring up the purge of black people in South Bend, Indiana, and there should for sure be some reparations for that, yes? And even public acknowledgement that this happened, yes? They get some free tickets to the Notre Dame game this fall, or maybe in perpetuity. Honorary captain, you come out and flip the coin, fighting Irish, woo! Fighting racism, we fighting racism. The section where they talked about in Edinburgh, that in the UK, across the pond, where they had this suspected racist, Lewis Hawks, gets arrested for terrorizing Muslims in the UK, non-white people. I said, wait a minute, because they said in the report, they said people in the UK, presumably white people, they don't know a Muslim, so they have this fear of the other and anxiety. But I said, wait a minute. I'm in Seattle. They got the World Cup. They got all these foreigners that came into our city and hopped on the train and got their old noise and drums and drinking all this booze and acting nutty, and they got these nutty flags from their nutty countries. I ain't never met nobody from Egypt in person. All these other countries, Cote d'Ivoire, I've never met anybody from there. I'm suspicious. I might have to bop one of them upside the head. Ain't nobody behaving like that. Oh, wow. Where you from? You rooting for your team? That's amazing. That's the attitude, not, I got to kill you. You must be up to no good. Where's my machete at? Haven't met someone who you could fill in whatever it is. Like, what? And I thought that it sounded even more of a specious claim, because I said, I think I've heard people say that, like, about white people, racists, in a place like Utah, South Dakota, where they don't have no black people. They say, oh man, we just a teaspoon racist because we don't have no Jamal out here. Lakeisha don't live around here, so we're a little bit confused and suspicious because we just don't know about Lakeisha, We just know what we see on TV. We watch the cops, you see. That does not sound reasonable then, nor does it sound reasonable. You haven't met a Muslim? Come on. There's a whole lot of different religious faiths in the world, so I've been told. I don't think the logical response, unless they come bearing a weapon and a scowl, I don't think the logical response should be, you're a part of war, maybe if it's Jim Jones. I don't think the logical response should be, I need a weapon. You might need a weapon for Jim Jones. Several. The section in Seattle, get back with the FIFA, man, gay rights is changing everything. I said it has been so crazy in Seattle. They got the Pride Month celebration that's going till the end of the month. Pride is a massive deal here in Seattle, and it has been for many, many years. It gets bigger in terms of more celebrations and more activities the longer the month goes. So it is at like fever pitch right now, especially for this weekend. I did not know whether or not they had that match scheduled for yesterday, the 26th. I didn't know if they had that match scheduled, like how far in advance. Did they know these two exact countries, Egypt and all, were going to be in the match or what have you? Apparently they say white people, they had this match scheduled like a year and some change ago before the teams were even picked. But oh man, all of the anti-sex hoopla, because they got all the decorations all over the city and the flags, and the businesses get, all behind it and everything. Like I said, Capitol Hill, which is not too close to the stadium where the football games are happening at, but it's not that far either. But they shut down, like this week, they have all the big concerts and events and marches. I think tomorrow they have some of the big marches and parades where they shut down some of the streets. Some of that is downtown. That might even be close to where some of the games and such are. Just, man, I cannot even imagine. I'm sure that they cut a fool. I had no intention of going down next to the stadium for any of that yesterday, but I'm sure they cut a fool, send their political message, gotta support the anti-sexual behavior, and we will wag our finger at you if you don't. And I paused to think, did they do all of this for Juneteenth? Because that was last week, and they did have soccer matches, FIFA soccer games here in Seattle on the 19th. They did indeed have 19th themed matches. I don't remember hearing any protests about that from any of the soccer clubs that were involved in the 19th festivals, but they, according to many news reports, they had black businesses all down where they have the setups, the watch parties and such for the soccer games, but they had black businesses and the Juneteenth flag, and lots of local black organizations participate and come down and market black vendors and all of the above. So yes, they did do that for Juneteenth. I do not celebrate. I guess you could say, man, you should have, we at least went down there for 10 minutes to investigate. I guess. We did have a program that day, so I guess. I will make an effort, especially if any of the African teams comes here for the so-called knockout round. I will make an effort to go and look, even if it's just to see the downtown area overrun with dark people, because that would be something to behold. I will at least go take a gander, maybe ask some questions, see if I can report back, just for posterity's sake. But I will go, especially if they get any African clubs come hang out here. I was kind of hoping Brazil would come, but I don't think that's going to happen now. But any of the African clubs come up here for the knockout round, we'll go investigate. The report, they had now I was thinking Fuller said no parties. The report in Montreal, black family attempted, where they're having a birthday party for the grandmother who's turning 74. They get a noise complaint. Enforcement officials arrive, say, oh, okay, we'll turn down the music. They turn it down. Now I'm thinking the bumpity bump, it can't be that loud if grandma's turning 74. I've been around a number of 74-year-olds. I have not met one yet Well, I got to, you got to have the mystical. You got to play it loud now. Or the James Brown or what. I have not met that 74-year-old. We got to have the Kendrick Lamar. You got to put it on the max volume. I got to feel it in my spirit. I have not met that 74-year-old. They generally don't even do the Mahalia Jackson real loud at 74. Just saying. So the officers come the first time, turn it down. Okay, turn it down. They come back. They got the pepper spray and toss a 74-year-old grandmother on the floor. And you got the bill, $158 bill, noise violation. Montreal, I believe they speak French in Quebec. And I have not been to Quebec. I've been to Canada, but unless I'm misinformed, Quebecois, they speak French in Quebec, unless I've been misinformed. Even with all, they still practice white supremacy, racism. They said they got the officers from that precinct who came and did all this, shoved the 74-year-old on the ground. That's assault. They could have killed her. Said they got 10 officers, almost a dozen, accused of practicing racism against black Arab people in Quebec. What to say, man? What to say? Canada, man. We get tired of racism. I thought we were going to go to Canada. No way. You can't hide in Toronto. You can't hide in Quebec. You can't hide in Ottawa. Global system of white supremacy. Vancouver, can't forget them. Vancouver's supposed to be really pretty. They still practice white supremacy racism. The section on in Louisiana, privileged black male Damon Landor, Rastafarian, the religion on this here planet, the religion of white supremacy. And that segment, I almost played the segment or the title for the book, The Delectable Negro, because to me that's the same thing. Vincent Woodard, in that book, he talks about how in the system of white supremacy, if you are not white, hey, white people can decide if you even get clothes or not. They arrest black people. Sometimes they'll come and strip the clothes off. Sometimes they come arrest you. We won't even let you get dressed. We're going to take you in half naked, whatever. Make sure you're not hiding no weapons in your clothes anyway. School searches, same sort of thing. Oh, you got a shirt on, that's objectionable. We kick you off the plane. But we decide if you can wear clothes. Maybe you don't get clothes. What clothes you get, we decide. You get to have hair. You don't have hair. We decide. You're not in charge of that. We decide. My religion is, and even they said in that case, the white officials in Louisiana, even though he was not in Angola, but that is what it brought to mind for me. They said the white officials at the prison in Louisiana, they knew, oh, he does have his religious rights, and we can't just shear him like a sheep or something. We let his hair go. No. We are in charge. Dred Scott, you don't have no rights that we have to respect. We do whatever we want to you. Damon, we don't even have to call your name. What's your prison number? We don't even call your name. We do whatever we want to you. Rules don't apply. That's I have seen individuals classified as white. That's how they behave. I don't care what the rule is. Shave your head. And they go to court. Yeah, they shouldn't have done that. Oh, well. No one gets fired. No compensation. No nothing. Religion of white supremacy. No rights that apply. I even thought of Lion Michelle Alexander, hi yellow wench. She said, hey, maybe Damon Landor, maybe he wouldn't have been in prison if they had less strict drug laws in Louisiana because he was arrested for a small amount of drug possession. Whatever. High yellow wench. They lock up a lot of black people in Louisiana, Mississippi, the world. They do not have recreational cannabis in Louisiana, though, if you think that makes a difference. The section on with the fishermen down in Jensen Beach, Florida. I cannot emphasize enough. That's exactly what Fuller talked about, and even that's what I've talked about in terms of not when you pull out that cell phone to record white people, do not think that that gets you out of harm's way. You heard even at the end, it was the white woman who they reported said called him a nigger, and he went to verify. What did you say? You called me a nigger? And she said 100%. That's what I've seen consistently. White people, racists, they are not inhibited by no camera. At what I've seen consistently, you want to record, nigger? I'm going to give you something to record. Where's my gun at? Where's my baseball bat at? Where's my crowbar at? That's what I've seen consistently. You want to record? We're going to give you something to record. That's what I've seen. Knock the phone out your hand. All of that. Mr. Fuller said consistently, you want to avoid long exchanges like that. You have no idea. Is he with other white people? Yes, he was with other white people. Are these white people armed? Is he on the fire department? Whatever. Is he armed? Remember Trayvon Martin? Is he armed? You want to avoid all these long exchanges and I'm a man and you don't come and tell me to move and I can fish here if I want. Hey, you can say all of that, VGQ. I'm just saying, you really want to avoid all these long exchanges and back and forth and you don't talk to me, who do you think you are, and all the rest of it. Hey, you have no idea. Who is this person? Is he armed? Is he with other white people? Are they armed? Y'all, what's the C.O.W.S, the builder? Wasn't that his name? I just look for conflict with black people. You don't have no fishing license. You're not supposed to be here. You next to them white children. You tried to steal my sandwich. Hey, any reason to come and start conflict with a black person? Oh, he moved at me aggressively. Pow! He raised his voice at me. Pow! He threatened my white woman. Pow! She might have her own weapon. Pow! Pow! You really want to avoid these types of exchange. That one, just for me, it went on way too long. Who are you, sir? Oh, okay. Well, I spoke with the person here to just on and on and on and on. Like, hey, I came here to relax and fish. I did not come to have a counter-racist exchange with a white person. The fishing trip might be done. I at least might have to pick another location. Again, I know many of us, the thought process, that white man is not going to make me move. I'm grown. You don't tell me. You don't make me come in. He doesn't even wear. I get it. I get it. George Zimmerman. C.O.W.S, the builder. You have race soldiers who are looking for an excuse to shoot a black person. Looking for an excuse to stab a black person. looking for any excuse. Violent conflict with a black person. If you came to fish, hey, let's fish. We can move. We can pick another spot. We have lots of options. If you came to have mortal combat with a race soldier, oh, let's put the rod down and let's get to it. I don't think he came to have mortal combat, and it's not even with a race soldier, because his suspected racist wife was there too. If you came to have mortal combat with a gang of racists, plural, put the rod down and let's get to it. If that's not your plan, I say avoid all of that. You have so many armed white people right now. Man, all of those little spats, parking plays, you looked at me funny, you cut me off, you didn't put your turn signal on, you got the last box of frozen corn dogs, whatever, all of that. Fine, you even heard in some of these things, like, dang, that happened so quickly. Man, yes, seconds sometimes is all it takes. And whoa. Blood on the ground, police got to be called, someone's in jail. Seconds. The section on the library. White people are dangerous. White library shooter in Chico. They said they didn't mention it in the clip. They did in other news reports. In the clip we heard, all they said was this white 18-year-old shooter went to the Chico library wearing a t-shirt that said natural selection. Catherine Massey Book Club. Some things you read and it changed the brain computer forever. Columbine as an act of white supremacy, racism. Then, what did that little coward, that little race soldier, Eric Harris, what shirt did he wear when he went to the library in Columbine and found Isaiah Shows? We got little nigger hiding under the table. Whew. Eric Harris' shirt say, natural selection. Say the 18-year-old white male shooter in Chico went to the library, just like Dill and Reb. Said he wanted to catch the library, see if he could burn it down. That's what Dill and Reb wanted to do. We're going to blow up the whole school. Failure, but they tried. We're going to blow up the whole school. The other news reports just made it explicit that he had went online. It's been, what is that, 27 years of worship of Dill and Reb. This is another one since this white race soldier stole his parents' guns. Same thing I've been saying. If they had arrested Eric Harris and Dylan Klebo's parents, old lame Sue Klebo, as opposed to her getting to write a best-selling book, she should have went to jail. Maybe we wouldn't be here. His parents for sure need to be charged at minimum. How did he get all these weapons? They said 222s. How did you get all that? They said the only difference in terms of he and Columbine, little coward race soldier, if he had done his research, if he had just tuned into the Catherine Massey Book Club. Reb and Dill, they spent months going out and shooting so they could develop proficiency when they went to go shoot their firearms. They said this little race soldier, coward, I don't even know how to fire the weapon properly. Come on. Come on. You can't even do a proper reenactment. Come on. You're supposed to have the videos where you go out in the woods and show, so you can show you practicing. Cowards. And That's another one that I've been saying. End stage white supremacy. I'm anxious. White genetic annihilation. I don't even know what to do with myself as a person classified as white. What are we supposed to do if I feel threatened about system of white supremacy, racism? That's even what some of them have said. Dill, Peyton Gendron, that's what some of them said explicitly. What am I going to do? What are we supposed to do? Get my gun, do some killing. That violence solves everything. Get my gun and do some shooting. Be like Reb, Dill, my favorite little cowardly race soldiers. Another reason why I would say, man, be alert when you are out in public. Talk to your children, even over the summertime. I'd say, man, being out in areas where it's big crowds. Now, he went and shot up the library. I would think that would be an environment where you are super safe, especially in the summertime, because school is out. If you are out in public, even at the library, man, I'm going to tell you, that was the nail in the coffin, metaphor and deliberate. Seattle is not a cool city anymore. How can you say that, Gus? You've bragged enough. Man, I went down University Way, affectionately known as the Ave here in Seattle. This is in the U District, like 1 block over from the University of Washington in Seattle. Within the last 2 years, 3 years, which is the Ave is like the major, this University Way is like one of the major strips. If you have a college campus, most college campuses will have like a major street. This is where the university bookstore is, where they have lots of banks, coffee shops, restaurants. Their public library is 1 block over. The U District Public Library is 1 block over from this street. So, I mean, it's lots of stuff. Everything that you would expect for a major university. University of Washington's student population is over 60,000. So this is a gargantuan public institution. Everything that you would expect to be on like the main strip for a massive university of this size and scale is University Way, the Ave. On the Ave, in the last 2 to 3 years, the Target closed, the Jack in the Box closed, the Starbucks closed, just in the last 2 to 3 years. And I said, wow, and as I'm just riding down the Ave, like, dang, I've been to that Starbucks, and dang, I didn't go to the Jack in the Box. I've been vegan, but still, I've seen it it's been there a long time. Just like, dang. And then the movie theater close to, like, that's a movie theater, the Jack in the Box, the Target, and most of these places, security, got all these drug users and crazies and violence. And man, I said, this is like right across the street from the university. Like, dang. Now, they have had some newer facilities open and such in there, but seeing all of that right there, and then they've had grocery store closures in that same time period where they even sound like they are complaining about food deserts where the white people live in Seattle. The nail in the coffin for me, I went to the library next to the beach. I hadn't been there in forever, but I'm going just because I thought it was a nice facility. Any library that's next to the beach, hey, win can go frolic and then stop, get a little bit of work done, go frolic, whoopee. I go stop by the library, and I get there like maybe 2 minutes before they officially open. Let's say they're going to open at 11 a.m. and I get there at like 10:58. So I'm like, 2 minutes, I can prop my feet up and sit out because they have nice little bench out front. It's next to the beach, nice little library. So I go, I'm going to sit the bench right here and do a little reading, and they'll be open in like 3 minutes and, go on with the day. I go to sit, and I'm like, wait, did they take the bench? What? I'm looking like, what? Y'all have taken the... If it has gotten so bad that the library has to remove the bench from the front of the building for crime or whatever, like nefarious activities are happening, man, oh man, Seattle has not recovered. It has been all downhill since COVID-19. I guess that's a metaphor. It has been not constructive, total deterioration since COVID-19. Maybe before, but certainly COVID-19, we did not recover. Man. We'll have to see if it improves, but I'd have to talk to some of the FIFA people. Like, what has your impression of the city been? Since I know y'all ate up all the ranch dressing, but beyond that, what do you think of Seattle? Just to see what they say. Maybe if I brave some of the crowds, if they get an African team that comes here for the playoffs or knockout round, whatever it is, I'll see what they think about the city. What has their experience been hanging out here? But man, I hadn't even seen this before, where white people complaining about food deserts. But there are white people in pockets of Seattle who are now complaining. They're closing all the grocery stores and treating us like niggers. Man. Anyway, y'all can check Pablo Diaz Bucio, B-U-S-C-I-O. Do you think he would be classified as a white person, non-white person? This is the Houston officer who has been accused of sexual misconduct with a minor. I think he would be classified as white, accepted as white, but I could be wrong. I've been known to make errors with classifications about who is accepted as a white person, so that is not worth my guess. Theory is not worth much at all. That's it. We will be here on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll have our programs in between. We will be concluding Michelle Alexander's new Jim Crow on Friday. I am elated. Second worst book I have ever read. Easily. Could be the worst book would be the worst book I've ever read, were it not for those FBI files. That is the only thing cementing this book at number 2, and we will wrap it up on Friday. She'd have to say something really out of this world on Friday to get this book to number 1, worst all time. But second worst is an accomplishment nonetheless. Lion Michelle Alexander and her white friends. We will wrap it all up on Friday. If you have, especially if we have people who, you read this book the first time and you did not think it was one of the worst books ever. If you thought it was constructive, what did you learn this time around? What specifically was different about the read, or specific things that you read differently than your initial reading of the text? Write it down, drop us an email, and or dial in this Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. Invest if you think the C.O.W.S is constructive. Hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. Beneath the button, you'll see the links for Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. Enormous gratitude for all of the investors who kept us on the air 17 plus years uninterrupted, right here, talking about, hopefully, giving constructive suggestions about replacing white supremacy with justice, what it means to be classified as white, what white supremacy racism is, how it works. Stay tuned. We'll have updates. See if we broadcast before Thursday of this week. At minimum, we will be here Thursday through Sunday of this week with our white guest on Sunday. Sobriety would be best if you all start the shindigs for July 4th and all of that on Monday. Let's make sure by the time we get to Monday, July 6th, you have all of your fingers and toes, all of your eyeballs, appendages, no bodily harm, no arrests, vehicle collisions. It was a boring so-called holiday weekend this coming Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No sobriety checkpoints, meaning they did have them, but you didn't get pulled over, have to go through any of them, mostly because you didn't do any late night traveling. Make sure you remind the younger drivers, people who haven't been on the road that long, especially black males, you do not want to have a 4th of July weekend to remember in a bad way. Sobriety would be best. Creator, we ask that you remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us, stop name calling and cursing people classified as black, even if they eat plant-based, diet. Listen to the messages you get from the Creator, especially if they are about anything constructive. It literally may be just you who gets this message. And if you don't follow through, no one else will. Pay attention. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.